sell your freedom, hoping to save your face. You never will be free. You never will be safe. Time to put your boots on. No place left to hide. Time to make a difference. Stand here by my side, 'cause I'm the radical.
Haumitakwepe. I'm better ashte. Today is a good day. Hello, my relatives. You know, America, the United States of America, the big lie, started out with the big lie. Let's look at the origins, the true history. You know, there is a saying. There's a lot of sayings. But a nation that does not know its history has no future. That's a wisdom that I realize now that America has become and is becoming very fast an underdeveloped country. Isn't it? To the rest of the world, that's like poetic justice. The richest country in the world, with everything to live for, wasn't satisfied. Chose warmongering over the population. And here we have now our industries emptied out. Everything that we need for self-sufficiency is gone. Labor unions, the people's movement, are gone. Say what you will about unions, but I'm telling you, the fact that people organized, you know, back in the 40s and the late 40s, beginning in the 30s, the union movement was very, very strong. And they were about to seize political power. This is the people, the working people. It's what Marx and Engels wrote about. The people in the United States of America were about to take over politics. This is fact, historical fact. And around 1950, Walter Reuther and the other leaders of the unions, most of the unions, sold out. Sold their people out and joined in with the executives and the government and the corporations. Because they were becoming about the people, were going to grab the power of the United States, like it was intended allegedly in the Constitution. And they couldn't have that because the union movement was so strong that they would vote in a block, and they could elect anyone and everyone they chose. And so this began around 1950, the dismantlement of the unions began. I grew up there in that time. I remember John L. Lewis, even George Meany, and other of the AFL-CIO leaders, you know, when they joined forces, that was the ultimate sellout. At any rate, the fact is, they found a way to co-opt the people. And then the Brown versus the Board of Education happened, 1954. And liberation became the key. You know, black liberation. The blacks led the struggle for liberation in this country, away from the corporations and the military-industrial complex. Now it's the military intelligence complex. But nevertheless, when they began the liberation movements, black liberation. I remember those days. Free speech movement. Just imagine, this country didn't have free speech when I was growing up. You can't imagine that? It's a fact. Don't have it anymore either. Nowadays. You never mind. People have been thrown in jail for talking from their heart. Today, since 9/11, since the Patriot Act, since the Anti-Terrorist Act under Clinton in 1995. But at any rate, back to the fact that everything was liberation, black liberation, free speech, women's liberation, gay liberation. Everything was called a liberation movement. And then the government was knocked back on its heels in America. You know, during the 60s, that was, in the early 70s, that was a heady time in America. That was, you know, they suspended the Constitution in Washington, D.C. when they called for a day of protest. The hippies and the yippies. These are white kids, rich white kids who were leading the movement. Hippies and yippies. And yet, they suspended the Constitution and threw them all in a football stadium in jail. They made the RFK Stadium. They made it a jail. Do you remember that? Anti-war protesters. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio in the late 60s. And I went down by Case Western Reserve University. Case Western Reserve, a private college for the very rich in Ohio and elsewhere. It was Cleveland's answer to Columbia because it was right on the edge of the black ghetto, just like Columbia University. And I saw those rich kids having an anti-war demonstration right at Case Western Reserve University. It was around 1969. I was an accountant at the time. So I went to observe. And I saw them bring out the police on horseback, the dogs, and the fire trucks with their hoses. And the police began a police riot, hosing those students, clubbing them, running them over with horses. I saw this. An anti-war demonstration. Wow. I thought to myself at the time, now wait a minute. If the police will attack rich white kids, this country is going places that the population shouldn't allow it to go. This country's going bad. And this is, of course, before police got their uniforms that make them look like they're in Star Wars and unidentifiable. Get that? Your police, your protect and serve BS. They now are unidentifiable. What kind of fear-mongering country do you live in? At any rate, the government and the powers that be were knocked back on their heels by all these liberation movements of the 60s. And the hippies and yippies and the peace movement. Everything. Liberation and peace. What a concept, huh? Well, they regrouped and Nixon got elected. And that's when the hoses and the police and everything started happening. And then some of the draconian laws, the spying on civilians, even the Quakers by the police, the FBI, spying on the Quakers, man. All of this and the illegalities of the FBI and the CIA as found out by first the American Indian movement. We proved it in court of law when we were on trial, but then that was followed up by Senator Frank Church of Idaho and his committee that exposed the CIA and the FBI and all their illegalities against the American people. That's in the 70s. But the biggest co-op was the civil rights. The government started the Civil Rights Division. And everybody in the liberation movements fell for it. Everybody except AIM, American Indian Movement. And all of a sudden, everyone was after civil rights. Now let's look at the absurdity of that concept. You, a black person, a brown person, a yellow person, a woman, a young person, you want liberation as promised by the United States Constitution. And what happened? You co-opt your own liberation struggle by going after civil rights. You're begging the elite white male for some of his, well, for his rights. Do you think he's going to give you any of them? Civil rights. That's an absurd concept. You want to have the same rights as a white male? You want to act like him? You know, he's got you, the women convinced. They're generals now. They're on the boards and they're becoming CEOs of major corporations, White House advisors, economic advisors. You know, the whole economics of the industrial world is to rape the ultimate female, which is our grandmother of the earth. Some call it Mother Earth. And they're in war now. They're flying bombers, jet planes, fighter planes. They're packing M16s and backpacks, serving in combat zones, playing professional football, all the violent sports, basketball, soccer. And I don't begrudge the women anything what they choose to do, because I come from a matriarchal society. And women, they don't rule, but women have the choice. Us men, we have a role. Once we get over our brashness and our foolishness as young men, we begin our role. So you have to begin to know, this is just recent history. In my lifetime, the unions, and now you have a totalitarian country ruled by 1% of the people. It's a royalty. America has invented a new royalty. You know, I would like to get more into the history, 1913, 1870s, Abraham Lincoln, standing armies you were not supposed to have, except National Guardsmen, Minutemen, that type of thing. But that's for another time. You should know your country. I know you. Thank you very much. Doksha K.